All right, welcome everybody. Thanks very much for joining our webinar today. We're going to be focused on what you can do in your corporate innovation team to prevent flops and ensure that you are winning early with your new digital product concepts. My name is Darren. I'm here together with JP. We have together built and separately probably hundreds of digital products that we brought to market, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we say. And what we've tried to do here is distill those lessons for you so that you can apply them within your team and avoid a lot of the costly mistakes that we and many others have made in the past. These should ensure that not only are you preventing flops and winning early, but you're creating an innovation program within your organization, or at least bringing to market products, new ideas within your organization successfully, right? We want to make sure that we're making an impact on the bottom line of the business with the innovation activity that's going on. So much in the past in innovation has just sort of turned out to be sort of fluff and not really creating any business value, and we want to change that in the sort of the tactics and the methodology that we can teach you today. So what we're going to cover today, then we're going to go with these 4 points. The first of which is a focus on what to do before you build anything, right? That's the first thing. A lot of people jump into building with a new idea they have without really going to market and validating it there. They just sort of turn it over in their mind, and we want to show you another way. We also want to kind of bust some of the myths around building a waiting list, which is the number one sort of tactic that we recommend. But there's a lot of ways that you can kind of go wrong with that or sort of miss the point of what it's about. We want to clarify that. The third thing is about really the nature of how ideas evolve and what an idea looks like when we first come up with it versus what it looks like after. For example, JP and I have been through it with the process that we recommend. And then finally, busting some of the myths around landing pages as well. A lot of people jump into just building a landing page, sticking it online, running traffic to it to build that waiting list. And again, that's missing the real point of what we're trying to achieve here with a waiting list and landing page and this whole selling first concept in the first place.
Let's start with the first one, right?
Yeah.
Preventing a flop and this concept of selling first. And, of course, thing that we talk about is like, okay, you've developed an idea, you think you have something, you've talked to a couple of people. And the first thing that we do to prevent, a product going out to market and finding that, nobody really wants to buy it is to, try to execute as many transactions as possible. Transaction is the key part of like creating a waiting list. And the idea is like, it's not just about showing a product to someone and people giving you feedback and saying, oh, they're really excited about it and they would like to try it. It is about a process of selling. And it doesn't have to be that, cash or a payment is involved, but definitely a transaction is happening. Right. And when we look at building a waiting list, it's not just about getting an indication of somebody, whether somebody likes something, but it's actually getting something from them, whether it's, personal information or an agreement to participate in a first pilot. But the key of like beginning to build a waiting list, beginning to get an idea of whether this product will sell or not is executing a transaction with that target audience, and not leaving it just in a very fluffy, I really would like to try it or something like that.
Yeah, I think one other point worth highlighting here is that, if you offer anything to anyone and, there's no indication of the cost, for example, then, there's no real reason for them to say no. I mean, it is still an indication of interest, and that general indication of interest will still help, to point you in the right direction and to generally give you an idea about whether this idea is resonating with anyone or not. But I think what we're talking about is higher quality signals, right? That's the point of what we're saying here. And if you want higher quality signals about, the appeal of your idea, then, for example, talking about how much it might cost might help to qualify that interest somewhat, to give you an idea about whether there really is any interest at that cost, because you may not be providing it for free. It may actually be something that you're going to charge $97 a month for example.
Yeah. And let's give them people an example of what we do here. If we're testing a value proposition, we always test it with the model, meaning how much it's going to cost, right? What are we going to charge for this? And one of the key kind of acid tests that we do is we leave the interview to the very end and we just stay quiet and we start to wrap up. and we try to gauge what is the reaction on the other end, right? If you're wrapping up and saying, thank you so much, that was great, that's really useful for us, and the session finishes, there is very little indication. Now, it's very common on the last kind of stages of our iteration process that the interviewee will stop us and it's like, wait, but can I get access to the product? Like, what's your next stage? And that's where you really know that you've got something that people are interested in, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
you
true.
left it
Yeah.
right to the end. You're not mentioning anything, and you're waiting for them to transact with you, to ask you about whether they can get, access to the product. You're not offering it. It's a very, very strong and nasty indication for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it goes to the point about getting high quality signals. And there, what you're avoiding is the sort of awkward situation which people almost feel obligated to give you good feedback when all you want is actually honest feedback. And the fact that you're leaving it you're leaving it open and they're proactively coming to you and asking for more information, we consider that in that interview context a really high quality signal. So not all opt-ins and sort of like feedback is created equal. And what we're trying to highlight here is that the transaction concept is a good one that helps to capture, there's actually an exchange of, okay, well, I'd have to give something up for this. That might be the cost, for example. That's why we test the model. Or in the example that you just gave, when someone's actually proactively coming to you and you're not asking, then the feedback has a lot more credibility in terms of being an opt-in for a waiting list. So it's not always about volume. There is a significant aspect of this, which is about quality. And it also depends on what stage you're at. Like as JP's described, we start building the waiting list as part of the value proposition validation interviews that we are doing with the target audience, not just, when we get something on a landing page and we're sending traffic to it at a later point. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, let's move on because time is of the essence. So we talked about creating a waiting list. The first kind of thing that we want to talk about when we're creating a waiting list is like multiplying the process of it, right? 99% of people that we engage with initially and talk about creating a waiting list, they immediately think the concept of creating a waiting list is about, creating a landing page, the work that goes behind creating a landing page, and, just throwing traffic at it, either paying for it or just, creating organic traffic, creating, just giving eyeballs to that landing page and wait and see how your waiting list grows. And in our experience, it's nothing to do with that. It's not a mechanical process. The difficult part about creating a waiting list is crafting an offer that, converts, that has a high conversion rate. Well, to the point that, sometimes when we work on consumer products, we build like waiting list of maybe 1,000 to 3,000 users. And we want to be working on that project to get the waiting list maybe 2 to 3 months. And the waiting list is built in the last 2 weeks. And the rest of it is crafting that offer, is iterating that offer until we know exactly what needs to be put on the landing page. By the time we build a landing page, we have confidence that our offer is good, that our offer people will buy, because we've talked with hundreds of users to craft that offer, to modify that offer to the point that it's converting. So if you think that the first stage of like building a waiting list is creating a nice website with a landing page with a button that says subscribe to the waiting list, that's wrong. That's like, it'll take you years to get that right, because, you're going to have to iterate that offer a lot. And by throwing traffic to it, it's very, very, very hard to tell what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I think this is a great point. There's a real kind of misunderstanding, I think, when it comes to waiting lists, because there are other people that advocate them, right? But it's sort of a very shallow recommendation in the sense that it's not about the waiting list per se. It's about all the effort that goes into crafting the offer and the deep market research that that starts with, understanding the customer struggle, jobs to be done, etc., which we talked about in a lot of other videos. And so that's where the effort is. It's like looking at an iceberg, and the acquisition part's just the tip of the iceberg that's above the water. But all the real effort actually happened beforehand in helping you to craft the offer based on a deep understanding of the market struggle, and then validating that in deep conversations with people where you're able to iterate it in a much more informed way and much faster than you would do sending blind traffic to a website and trying to understand why didn't it stick. You'll never understand. You're just going to be guessing. So we need to avoid, we want to put ourselves in a situation where we can be as informed as possible about what specific aspects of our value proposition are resonating and not, and why. And in particular, to understand even if it's a comprehension issue rather than something to do with the actual value prop itself, which is another way that people screw this up, because you might put something on a landing page and have no real idea whether someone is understanding what you put there or what you meant even. But in an interview situation in which we would do many interviews before getting to a landing page, you can ferret that out, right? You can find out.
We're talking about hundreds of interviews, right?
Yeah.
And the message, let me put it in black and white. The message is simple. You want to prevent a flop? Work on your offer. Build confidence with data that your offer is an offer that your target audience really finds attractive.
Yeah.
You need to be really asked about who you talk to. Are they really your target audience? And communicating exactly what you have in black and white regarding your offer, not going off the lines when you're presenting it. Don't put pepper on top. Just read what's on the lines and see what they say. Because when they land on your landing page, you're not there to put pepper on top. So it's not seasoned correctly. You're not going to convert, right? So the seasoning needs to be in the words.
Yeah, that's right. It's like what you've got there to read out is all that's going to be on the page, and that's what you've got to work with, and that's what you need to
The
realize.
difficult part about building the landing page is the copy, guys. There is no UI, there is no UX, no complexity to it. It's the copy. And if you don't have the copy in a piece of Word or a piece of whatever written on a page, don't even get started with trying to find a URL and a platform to build on, because there's no point. You get no offer. And the chances are that if you're not tested your offer and you're not confident about it, it will not convert. Which brings me to the next point. Which is change or die. And I'm going to talk about my experience, right? My experience in building hundreds and hundreds of, products is that I don't remember any product that a corporate or a startup brought to us as an idea and said, we're looking to build this. And by the time we were done with it, it was exactly the same. Right?
Totally.
I even had a conversation the other day about somebody asked me, however it happened that, they come with an idea and you find out that, it's not good. It happens all the time. But the outcome of what I do is change the idea so that it is good and the market likes it. That's what we do for a living, right?
Yeah.
You have to change or die. If you embrace that, you realize that you're in a situation where change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Why would you go down the route of building something first when you know that change is inevitable? Try to change and align yourself to the market desirability as much as you can while it's for free, while it's just a couple of hours of your time, while you have it just in text. It can be done. It's not as fancy as showing someone some UI. It's not as nice as having a demo to do, but it is a lot more cost effective to change when you're just changing words around. When we talk about value proposition crafting and change, we're changing what the product does for a living, not how we communicate it. What it does, the feature. What is it that you're building? What is it that this thing does for you?
Absolutely.
Testing is the mother of progress in the idea stage.
Yeah. That's what product design is all about, right? Because we're trying to create value for users, right? That means we understand the problem. We're creating something to reduce or eliminate that struggle. And it's in doing that the product creates value for them, right? And that's what it's all about. What we're trying to validate is, after we've validated that problem and we have confidence that we understand that, is the way that we have come up with to solve this problem, does it genuinely reduce or eliminate the struggle in the way that we're anticipating or not? And to what extent does that appeal to them, based on what it, means that they have to do.
Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of risk involved after you've crafted a group like value prop and you have a good idea what you need to build. Right? There's the execution bit is still there. But if you execute right, people will buy and people will pay for that. So embrace change. And embracing change is not just like oh yeah, we're really good here at embracing change. We really support people to pretend things in a different way. Embracing change is about tooling. It's about approach. You can't say you're embracing change if you have an idea and you start building. You can't say you embrace change if, you test your value proposition and you custom build a landing page. No, you have to use tools that allow you to change. Your first product pilot needs to be made with no code or low code. Your landing page for sure needs to be built with a solution that allows you to change text by yourself without a developer involved. Embracing change is about the tools that you pick that allow you to change cheaply, fast, accurately.
It's a great point. I think it's a great point. It's sort of like the tools that you pick really reflect your philosophy, and no matter what you say your philosophy is, if you haven't chosen the tools, the methods, the tactics in order to make that a reality, it's all just words, that you're talking about.
It's like saying you're saying that you're sustainable, and you will have you drive around in a Dodge Ram. It's like, no, if you want to be sustainable, you need to pick the tools that make you sustainable, right?
That's right, yeah.
So pick your right tooling. Let's go to the last one. I'm conscious of the time. This one is
17 minutes, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay. This one is quite interesting. Like, we do a lot of building digital waiting lists, right? And it is kind of the core of how we build ourselves with confidence that the value proposition and the offer that we've crafted, it's got traction. Well, we should be building it before we have a significant waiting list, for example, for a consumer product, 1,000 to 3,000 users. We don't know if it's going to be desirable. We don't have the confidence. When I talk about confidence, I talk about data that supports my confidence. Not just oh, JP is super confident. No. What data do you have to support that this is a value proposition that people will buy? Well, I've created a waiting list of 3,000 users in a week and a half. But to be able to do that, you need to sell in person first. Right? Consider this. A waiting list is a process that is, it's a scalable way of selling a value proposition, like a landing page. A landing page like that. It just scalably allows you to sell your offer and to transact with users. If you've never sold your value proposition in person to someone, you are not in a position to build a landing page. Again, the landing page is all about crafting the offer, and being able to sell in person is about doing that. We do 100 conversations. 100 conversations before we build a landing page. That's why it takes us maybe a month and a half to 2 months to even get started with the landing page, because we need to understand humans and we need to understand what their problem is, and we need to understand how this solution is going to address their problem. And it's not about, running 3 interviews and sitting down with a workshop team and coming up with what the features are. It's not. It's systemic, and it's, a simple, structured way to go through a process that at the end you've sold to 10 or 15 people and you have the confidence that what people are buying. In jobs to be done theory, people are not interested in your product. They're interested in trying to get an outcome, trying to achieve something. You need to understand that. People are not buying your product. They're trying to solve a problem that they have. And you need to agree to that and then put it down in writing. But you need to have evidence. And there's only one way of getting evidence, and that's to sell it in person. To build yourself with confidence that you know what needs to be on that landing page before you start even building it.
And I think it echoes some of the points we're making earlier, right? That at the end of the day, if you're going to be iterating something, you need the data to be able to work with that. And even if we're doing it in the context of these, qualitative interviews, kind of quick and dirty, although very structured, at least you know what people are understanding and not. At least you know which aspects, which specific features people are find appealing or not, and why if it's not, so that you can break it down and you can actually iterate with in an informed way. Because if you just have something on a landing page and you're sending traffic there and you're getting conversion rate of X, you have no idea why you're getting a conversion rate of X. You have no idea how to improve it, I should say, actually. You have no idea how to change it, really, with any confidence that you'll be moving the needle in the right direction. That's the key. That's why we do the interviews. That's why we have, where you have to sell it in person first, so that you can experiment with the language, so you can understand what's not working and why, so that you can see whether people are really understanding what you're saying. So you can ask them to put something in their own words and repeat it back to you. You can't do that on the landing page, right? That's why it's the last step. It's not the first step. First step is what we're talking about here.
You're just chopping your hands on the last step because you can't really do much, Like, the changes, you can change, but it's a lot slower. The cycle of change is a lot slower.
And I think that's the main point that we're making, is that, yes, a lot of people do advocate a landing page and building a waiting list. And we're not disagreeing. We're just saying that by the time that you get there, you should already have built the confidence, because of the iteration work that you've done, that pretty much that landing page is the best version of what you're working on at the moment. A lot of people will stick a landing page up and it's just giving them a yes or no, right? Which, if you didn't want to invest any effort, you could just get that yes or no, but it's not that useful if you're trying to prevent flops and ensure that you're winning fast, right? Which is the point of this conversation that we're having today.
The name of the game is not whether, your value proposition is a yes or a no. It's modifying the value proposition to get it to a yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the name of the game. Change is inevitable. So accept that. We have one bonus point here, which has to do with feedback. And we hear this word a lot, and, people talk about feedback loops and talk about iterating and getting feedback from the market and so forth. And, we've had a lot of experience in this, and we wanted to kind of bring one key thing to the forefront, which is, when you're looking for feedback, you need to be very, very clear before you walk into any conversation. A, who you're ascertaining feedback from and making sure that you're talking to that person. And B, what are you looking to answer? What is it that you want to get out of that conversation? We see a lot of feedback sessions where people show products or show concepts and ask people for their opinion, and it's just not good enough. People are naturally going to give you a good opinion, because that's who we are. Nobody wants to be a party pooper, right? Especially if you're presenting just ideas, people will be the first thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you're talking to the right people and that you're asking about them. They're not, I'm not asking for your opinion on the market. I am asking for your opinion about yourself, the money that you have in your wallet, and whether you would be buying this or not. So look at your wallet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's it. And the second thing, you can ask about different things. You can try to understand whether people are understanding your message. You could try to understand whether people find your message desirable. You can try to understand whether people find the experience that you're presenting engaging. There's different layers of testing that you can, go through, but you need to know exactly what you're looking for. For example, if I was drafting a value proposition and I wanted to know whether somebody understands the value proposition, I would present it to them and then have them explain it back to me to see whether what they're explaining is exactly
before anything else,
I
right?
intended to. How can you understand whether somebody would find it desirable when you're at the idea stage explaining someone something and they understood completely a different thing? You're going to get lost, right? You're going to be I love it, but thinking about something else, and you're thinking about the thing on the right, and you're going to end up building the thing on the right, and he's going to see it and go. So the first thing that you do is like, do people understand what you're up, what you're about? That's why when I find this like landing pages with this cryptic data, like cryptic information, it's like, I don't even know what you do for a living, dude.
Mm-hmm.
How can I provide feedback? And then
Actually,
the
that's a
second
good
layer
point.
is, yeah,
I just want to highlight that actually, because a lot of the startups that we work with, particularly in the accelerators, when we're doing the sort of the landing page teardowns that they've done, the biggest problem is actually comprehension. It's not clear at all what they are talking about, and you just I'm sure in those situations, because we've done it ourselves, putting it into our own words, it's not what they mean, and
you're just too
so
close to
not
it, you know? It's just like,
yeah
you can't really run comprehension on your own idea. You're too close to it.
mm-hmm. yeah
Just
yeah.
tell your idea to someone and have them explain it to you. And I will be surprised if you get what you think you got across.
Yeah, and actually that it just highlights, I think, that people's problem with their product or their idea is often not what they think it is. It's often um, just a problem of even understanding what you're saying and comprehending that and being like, oh, that's what you mean. Oh yeah, that would be great. Or oh, that's what you mean. No, that's not what I'm. Yeah, and so that's why comprehension is the first of the 4-step testing process that we talk about.
The second one is very structured, and it's all
Mm,
about like understanding desirability. You can ask people how desirable they find that feature. But to do that,
yeah.
you need to craft your value proposition in a way that you can break it down. For us, a value
hmm
proposition is feature by feature, is a high level line and a feature by feature. You know, it can't be like a cloud of things that all go together. You need to be
Yeah.
able to structure it really, really well. Structuring your value proposition is the key of being able to ascertain whether it's desirable or not, and what part is desirable and what part is not.
Yeah. I think it's also worth highlighting here that this is actually also a very useful prioritization tool for you as a product
Yeah.
designer, and a team is going to be responsible for delivering this to market, because you can understand, oh, well, predominantly the value in this value proposition we design is over here. Not only should we prioritize this, but actually maybe we should just do this, and maybe we should just go to market with that and try,
Some of our
build,
pilots is just
build.
one feature, right? Just one
Yeah.
feature. It's the feature that hit the best. And it's like you test it and it's really desirable and people are willing to pay for that feature. That's the second thing, the third thing that we do, which is understanding their willingness to pay. You can build a whole product with one feature.
Yeah. And I think, you may not take it to that extreme, but at least you're informed with the information to know where the value is being created in your product. And at that point, then when you validate the comprehension, when you validate the appeal of the different features in your product and the value prop overall, it's only at that point that you want to start thinking at all about what the user experience might be, let alone the UI. That is so far down the line. And the biggest roadblock that we see a lot of people getting into is that they're trying to get feedback about one thing, but they're actually getting feedback about another. How many user interviews have you been in, or demos or walkthroughs have you been in, where you're trying to get meaningful feedback about the value proposition, and the only thing they're able to tell you is about the color of the headline, and you're like, yeah, well, what's that got to do with
size
anything?
of the buttons.
That's the point.
And it's like,
what has that got to do with anything? But it's your fault for putting it in front of them. And it's your fault for structuring the questions in the way that you did. So that's what we need to change, is the way that you approach getting feedback. And as JP said, it comes down to who you're asking and what information you're trying to get out with them. And therefore, how are you structuring those questions so that you can do that? That's the key.
let me say this. When we build a landing page and we build like a waiting list and we get 3,000 people on board, we do not know what the product will look like. We have absolutely no idea what the
from
UX
a UI
like.
standpoint, UX standpoint. Yeah.
We
totally,
don't know.
Yeah.
The UX, the UI, we don't know. It's not important.
Yeah.
That's all execution. It is a problem. But until you have 3,000 people that said, I really like what that says on the tin. I haven't tasted it yet, but what it says on the tin is really interesting. I would like a piece of that. Until you have that, there's no point of doing UI. There's no point of doing UX. There's no point of figuring out what information you need for them to create an account. It is the point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I think those are very strong points and a very interesting kind of final bonus point.
Agree. So I think the key thing for us here is that this is the work that we do helping corporate innovation teams and product teams to bring new product ideas to market. We help you to ensure that you're taking the steps from a methodology and tactic standpoint to sell it first before you actually try to build the waiting list, that by the time we get to a waiting list or a landing page, that we have a deep level of confidence in what we're building there, that the quality of feedback that we've got throughout the process is high quality, that we can actually use to iterate the idea in an informed way, and that we can get to the point where we're ready to start acquiring people and know that that money is going to be worthwhile and give us a very useful indication of whether there's a market for this idea that we have already iterated to get to this point.
A way of like thinking about it is there is a million versions of one idea, and probably only one or two of them are going to be successful on the market. Our job is to find the version of the idea that you want to pull from, the version that people are going to buy. And that's the key of it. We find the version of the idea that is going to be successful on the market, and it's not going to be a flop.
Yeah. I think what's really shown, we've done that with solo founders, small startups, small businesses, Fortune 500 companies. This is a process that works at any level, really. It has that integrity. It works across any different industry. A lot of people ask us that as well. Industry agnostic in that way. And this is something that we can do. If you have an idea that you're working on right now, that you're exploring with your team, or maybe you haven't even brought it to your team yet, but this is something that you're exploring in order to help you grow in some way, either your users or your revenue base, talk to us, and we can start to walk you through the way that we would approach validating that idea to give you the confidence you need before you make the next investment to build that thing and bring it to market. We can do that for you at no cost and make sure that you have a blueprint that you can follow to take that product to market with confidence. So do get in touch if we can help you in that way. And with that, we'll sign off. Thank you very much for joining us here today from JP and myself. See you next time.